Here's the thread I'm introducing this time. Share what you've discovered while living in UR housing complex. In this thread, 2ch users living in UR housing complexes discuss the desperate reality they've noticed and what they've revealed. If you're thinking about renting a UR apartment or are worried about living in a UR apartment, please take a look. Here we go. I'm 55 years old and wondering whether to move to a UR apartment. What's it really like to rent a UR apartment? Anyone who's lived there can tell me. There's
no fee or renewal fee for UR apartments. I thought it would be good for retirement too, but I've heard that the initial cost is cheap, so there must be something fishy about it. There's a
reason why it's cheap. I've been living there for half a year now, but there are quite a few things that bother me. I'm in the camp that only looked around and then quit. There's a difference between years and wealth. What exactly is a UR apartment? UR apartments are rental housing provided by the Urban Renaissance Agency, a government-established organization, and their main feature is that they don't require any fees, renewal fees, or guarantors. Guarantees are also not required in principle, and the screening for moving in is mainly based on whether you meet the income criteria. With properties all over the country and a comprehensive support system for the elderly and disabled, it is a popular option for public rental housing where you can live with peace of mind for a long time.
Guarantors are also not required. If you just listen to the conditions, it sounds like a great property. People
around me have mixed opinions. Some say it's the best, while others say they'll never move again. Before moving, I looked at the UR website and thought it was cheap and spacious, so I almost got a blood clot, but an acquaintance talked me out of it and I ended up staying. I've
been living in a UR rental since last year, and to be honest, my biggest complaint is the noise.
That's it. I wonder how bad it is. It's a 152-year-old apartment complex, but I can hear the sound of the toilet flushing next door and even the sound of people talking on the TV. There's
absolutely no noise, but is it completely different in the morning? I looked at a property in a 35-year-old neighborhood before, and it was quiet with walls only 15 centimeters thick, but right now, the walls and floors are probably less than 10 centimeters thick. Is
that what it feels like all day? It's
still okay during the day, but it's hell on the weekends. The voices of children can be heard from the park in the apartment complex from 8 a.m. Their screaming and running can be heard even with the curtains closed. It's
like an alarm clock. It's the worst when it happens on a holiday morning. I can hear the sound of people walking upstairs. When they wake up, I wake up. Things
like that make me feel conscious and can't relax, and it's tiring just to live.
At 2 a.m., the washing machine upstairs starts spinning. The low, clanking sound comes directly to me. It feels like it's happening right next to my pillow, and it always wakes me up. You
can't block out low noise. Even with earplugs, it resonates through your body. That's right. Just when I thought I was waking up, they've started cleaning again. I can clearly hear the clatter of the head hitting the floor, and I wonder why now. The
hum of the lawnmower is also annoying. There's a lot of greenery in the apartment complex, so it happens at least 3 times a year. It
must be tough if you live on a lower floor.
I live in one apartment, but I can't hear the TV at all because of the grass cutting, and if they start painting the exterior walls, the sound of drilling will echo for almost a month. There's no way I can work from home. Ambulances don't come either. There are a lot of elderly people driving, so they often stop in front of the apartment complex. The sirens go directly to my ears. It's a full course of environmental noise. The worst is the temporary workers. They talk on the speakerphone on the balcony at 1 a.m. and they laugh too.
Why are they talking outside? They do it even in the winter? They do it even in the winter. Apparently they like talking while feeling the night breeze. But I can't sleep. You can't notice things like that before you move. Always check the bulletin board when you're looking at properties. Properties with a lot of noise will definitely have noise warning signs posted. I checked just in case, but I was attracted by the low price. I never thought it would be this bad.
Peaceful Tower doesn't have many signs to begin with. Places with a lot of signs are usually the ones where the residents are fighting with each other. You
really should avoid places that are more than 50 years old. The soundproofing is so weak that nothing I do works. Just the sound of footsteps upstairs makes me irritated all day. What really got me in despair was the bugs. This was worse than I imagined. They do come out. I guess cockroaches are unavoidable in old properties. My friend who has been in the lower level for 50 years apparently encountered them every day in the summer. I've been in the middle level for 35 years, so I've only encountered them once in 6 months.
Even once is unpleasant. Where do they come in from? There
are a lot of gaps in the building. Like holes in the pipes or gaps in the balcony railings. It's a completely impenetrable structure, so it doesn't prevent them. Is there
anything I can do about it?
I put meat repellent on the balcony and in a secret place in the room, but I only see them 4 times a year. I think I'd see them more often if I didn't put it there. I've
heard that turtle bugs in early spring are also dangerous, but is that true?
Yeah, it doesn't prevent those. They would gather around the charcoal on the balcony, and I would catch 5 of them every morning for about a month. I'm
exactly the same. I pick them with my hands and throw them away in a sealed plastic bag right away. But that smell gets into the room in an instant. It
stinks. Can't amide prevent that? No, it can't.
They can get in through even the slightest gap. They get in the moment you open or close a window. The damage caused by pigeons is also terrible. Luckily, my room doesn't have any, but someone else had a pigeon trap on their balcony. It's so bad that all the laundry gets ruined outside. I often see balcony nets, but can they be installed later? You can, but you have to pay for it yourself. UR will almost never install one for you. I've experienced damage in most rooms with nets. Is it
true that the zoos are worse? That's
true. Both insects and pigeons come directly from nearby air or the ground. It's a little better on the middle floors or higher.
But even on the middle floors, it's not completely preventable. G's in particular can get into any floor through the pipes. It's the fate of apartment complex structures. Is it
really impossible to eliminate them?
No, it is. You can reduce their numbers, but you can't reduce them to 0. That's why it's important to install a thorough insect repellent.
Also, it's dangerous to leave the balcony unattended. Fallen leaves and trash can build up and become a bug trap. It's
tough to spend time with the windows open in the summer. I close the windows with the air conditioner in the summer. There was a time when bugs flew in the moment I opened the window.
Look at the density of the number of times and the number of years it's been there calmly. What made me despair about living in was the age of the plumbing. I've lived in the house for over 40 years, but the bathroom is completely Showa era. The aluminum drains are blackened and look like they're from the past.
Is it the kind of thing that won't come off even if you clean it? I
reported it to the management, but they said it was a repair problem without any problems with my life. I've
heard that many people don't have automatic drains or anything like that, but that doesn't happen at my place. I just have to stop the water when it's full. I've had it overflow a few times. Even when I put pipe cleaner in the exposed drain in my place with a stainless steel cover, the color doesn't change. That's
just the way it's structured.
I don't clean the drains regularly either. The inside is covered in rust and sludge.
My kitchen has an old gas stove and little storage space, and there are still oil stains from the previous tenant.
Has the house been cleaned?
It has, but they haven't completely removed the stains. The stainless steel drain in particular remains.
Some of the conversations here are about new items being scraped off, but that was only in the Aki room in the upper apartment building, which has no elevator.
What about the washroom?
There's plenty of space, but the construction is old. In some apartment complexes, the washing machine is in the corner of the kitchen even though it's 80 square meters. The
drain pipe is facing outward.
Yes. So the laundry drain flows into the bathroom. It's cramped, inconvenient, and looks bad. Does it come with a gauze or something? It doesn't. But there's an outlet, so I guess you'll have to pay for it later. Overall, it's unpleasant for people who want the latest facilities. It's different
if it's a newer, but the rent skyrockets. In the end, older ORs are cheaper, but the plumbing is old. It depends on whether you can accept that.
But I'm a little concerned about the condition of the drain pipe. If it gets clogged, how much does it cost to repair?
I had to pay for it myself. Normally, would pay for it, but apparently I was the cause. They
only cover it if it breaks due to self-inflicted damage or something. If it gets clogged, you basically have to pay for it yourself. So I try not to clog it. Also, make sure to clean the drain cover thoroughly. If you don't do this, it will start to smell. I
can see why the rent is so high. Even if the interior has been renovated, the oldness of the structure and facilities can't be hidden.
Does UR have a neighborhood association or something? There's
basically no neighborhood association or cleaning. That's easy. In a condominium, you have to mop the grass every year. That's
right. Has a cleaning company that does everything. They even clean the garbage area.
They buy the green space in the complex, so the residents don't have to do anything. How are the neighborhood relationships?
Just a little bit of a greeting. When you move in, you hand over your room to the people above, below, and to the people below, and then you hardly talk to them after that. It's
nice that there aren't any problems with interpersonal relationships, but the quality of the residents varies from property to property. The
cheaper the rent, the higher the trouble rate. Cheap places tend to have a lot of foreigners, and differences in culture can lead to arguments over rules and regulations that are unfamiliar to people.
Is there a manager? He's
in the manager's office during the weekdays. However, he's not there at night, so it takes longer to respond to problems.
What about security if there's no neighborhood association? That's
Up to the management company. There are more security cameras, but they do have qualifications. On the other hand, some people might feel more secure if there's a neighborhood association.
considering the stress of being an officer, UR's distance is just right. Aren't
There any events outside of the apartment complex?
I think most of them don't these days. The only places that still have children's associations are holding summer festivals.
So it's heaven for people who aren't good at socializing. If there's absolutely no interaction, you'll probably feel isolated. That's
True, especially for the elderly. There's no one to rely on in an emergency. Well, in the end, it all depends on how rich you are and how many residents there are. So it's essential to go twice a day during the day and at night to check the bulletin board and observe the residents. Is a completely different place if you're rich. The rent is high in the basement of the station, and there are almost no vacancies. The
Real estate agent I saw said that the station and sheltered properties I saw were always full and would fill up as soon as they opened.
On the other hand, if it's a 15-minute bus ride from the station, there are plenty of empty seats and the rent is quite cheap. But there are times when the bus service is limited. In some
Places, there's only one bus per hour after 9 p.m. If you have a car, the distance to the station doesn't matter. But if you don't have a car, it becomes very inconvenient.
How do you go shopping? Some
Properties with bus service have supermarkets nearby, but the selection is limited and the prices are high. I have to drive 15 minutes to get to a restaurant. If you like going out for drinks, the only option is the station's underground area. If you can't get home by train, drinking parties are held.
How much is the rent difference compared to the station's underground area? The size is the same. Even with the number of years, the station's underground area is 230,000 yen more expensive. But when you consider the commuting time and transportation costs, it may pay for itself.
If you're mainly paying for empty seats, you might want to consider living underground or outside the station to keep your rent low if you're teleworking or commuting by car. Ultimately, it all depends on your lifestyle. However, be careful as some outside the station areas are susceptible to snow and typhoons. When you visit, it's a good idea to check the traffic in the morning as well as during the day. It also makes a big difference whether the station is served by rapid trains or only by fixed trains.
even if you're on a bus, it's easier to live if there's a large supermarket or hospital near the station.
Ultimately, the reason rent is cheap is usually because of poor access. If you jump at the chance just because it's cheap, you'll regret it because your life will be too inconvenient. You should never compromise on the rich.
Older buildings often have unique quirks in their structure. The elevator in my building only stops 4, 7, or 10 times. Mine only stops 3 times, so I always get off after 4 stops and go down 1 stop. It's really hard when you have a lot of luggage.
Living in a Nakakaiza building is surprisingly inconvenient. It's even harder if you have a stroller or wheelchair.
Old buildings don't have much awareness of barrier-free access. The handrails sometimes end halfway. The stairs are narrow, so it's hard to pass each other. Another thing that
Surprised me was the rooms where air conditioning is prohibited. Apparently, an acquaintance of mine was told that it was because of the structure, even though there were pipe holes. It's impossible to live without air conditioning in the summer these days. They say it's a fan and a surge circulator. Honestly, it's bad for your health. The
layout is old-fashioned too. The hallways are long and the living space is cramped.
but renovated properties are somewhat improved. That's
Right, but the structure itself can't be changed, so there will still be fundamental inconveniences. And there's nothing you can do about things like elevators being out of service. If you're moving when you're older, you shouldn't take these structural issues lightly. You might not notice them when you're young, but they'll become a subtle burden 10 years from now.
But UR's initial costs are certainly cheap. No hidden fees, no renewal fees, and no guarantor required are definitely deductible.
In the private sector, it's normal to pay 1 or 2 months' rent, and you get 1 month's rent every 2 years for renewal fees.
But has a tuition fee to make up for that. Ours is a little over 4,000 yen a month. That's a
Subtle effect. That's close to 50,000 yen a year.
But they also do cleaning with that tuition fee, and the quality of management isn't bad.
Rents vary considerably depending on the age of the area. Older apartment complexes that are over 50 years old can cost around 60,000 yen. On the other hand, newly built apartments can be on par with private apartments, and in some cases they can be more expensive.
Furthermore, private apartments tend to be more luxurious in terms of facilities. Newer apartments don't have bathroom dryers or meals included, but they aren't that luxurious.
So are there any advantages to renting from newly built apartments? They don't.
Require a guarantor and the flexibility of the tenant screening process. Another advantage is that you can live comfortably without having to be part of a neighborhood association.
Private apartments can sometimes be turned down if you are elderly or self-reliant. Considering this, Some people choose apartments even if they are newly built.
However, if you are looking for cost effectiveness, apartments around 30 to 40 years old are a good choice. They are not too old and don't have a premium for new buildings, so they offer a good balance between rent and facilities.
In the end, even if the initial cost is low, the long-term difference in rent will make a big difference.
And don't forget about parking. Depending on how wealthy you are, it can cost as much as 515,000 yen.
Apartments tend to have a high turnover rate. Even in the same building, there are some rooms that are clearly occupied earlier. There
must be a reason for these rooms. The neighbors are too noisy, or the neighbors are full of garbage and smelly. An acquaintance of mine moved out after a year because the neighbors were full of garbage and the sewage was coming in.
Apparently, some rooms are structurally damp. You can't tell this when you're viewing. You can't just decide on a good deal if you only look at them on a sunny day. The
extent of the renovations also varies from room to room. Some rooms have been completely renovated and look brand new, while others have been minimally renovated with only the wallpaper and flooring replaced. Many places don't
even consider the plumbing. The room I moved into had a brand new kitchen, but the bathroom was still in Showa-era specifications. The
competition for vacant rooms in popular housing complexes is fierce. Even if our apartment is listed in the morning after the station, applications are immediately flooded. I've heard that it can sometimes be filled before it's even posted online. It's
especially important to get a 1 LDK or 2 DK apartment right away. Apparently, some people sign a contract without any problems. Apartments are extremely risky because the hits and misses are so high. Disasters and infrastructure are surprisingly overlooked when choosing a apartment. It's dangerous if you don't look at the surrounding environment as well as the age of the land. The sewage treatment plant near the where my relatives live is aging and was on the news. It's
going to cost billions to fix. If the local government doesn't have enough financial resources, it'll be postponed. If that happens, there could be damage from sewage backflow and odors. It's also dangerous to feel safe just by looking at a hazard map. Sometimes the risks of the hazard map aren't listed.
Also, if there's a scientific factory or warehouse nearby, there's a non-zero risk of fire or explosion. Depending on the wind direction, smoke or people can drift in. A
former colleague of mine lived in such a place and threw it away because his laundry always turned into powder. There
have also been cases where people thought they were safe because they were on high ground, only to find out that it was a landslide risk zone. You
can get information like that by going to the disaster prevention department of your local town or village. Has a large area, so there are many places that depend on the terrain. In old housing complexes, the drainage plan may not meet current standards. During heavy rain, parts of the property become puddles and become impassable. The
electrical system is also old and slow to recover from low power. Almost no URs have solar power or emergency power. You
should also check the evacuation route. Considering the possibility of a power outage at night and pitch darkness, the
comfort of living ultimately depends on the property. It
is true that residents of the area who have lived there for a long time should be prepared for the difference in ground and ground noise, insects, and the age of the plumbing. In particular, the noise level is too low for those over 100 years old. The noise from daily life at night can be stressful. On the other hand, if the area is 30 to 40 years old and the walls are well maintained, it can be relatively comfortable. The rent is comparable to that of private companies, so if you are looking for good value for money, 30 to 40 years old is the best.
Always find out why rooms are frequently occupied. Popular housing complexes are in high demand, and there must be a reason why there are so many air-conditioned apartments in the area. If you
get a good deal on our apartment, it can be comfortable. That's why it's all about checking the site and gathering information. Also, check the bulletin boards and the atmosphere of the community center on weekdays and holidays. It's important to choose based on your own requirements rather than jumping at the merits. If you can keep that in mind, UR is not a bad choice. Which do you think is better for people over 50 or owning a home? I'm 56 years old and renting. Recently, I've been wondering if renting is the right choice. Everyone around me owns a home, so it's even more difficult to decide. In fact, many people live in their parents' homes. When their parents pass away, they just inherit it. I don't have a home and my parents' home is gone, so where am I going to live when I'm old?
My family has owned a home for 50 years, but earthquake damage and repair costs are a headache. When I
hear that, I realize that both renting and owning a home have their own worries. If you
think about it calmly, rent in old age is incredibly expensive. Living on a pension, paying 80,000 yen in rent is too much.
If that continues for 30 years, it's about 28.8 million yen. Even if you do the simple calculation, that's enough to build a house. let alone a house in the Kansai region.
And pensions are decreasing. If rent is deducted from my take-home pay of 130,000 yen, I'm only left with 50,000 yen or so. The
rest is food, heat, and medical expenses. It's a tight budget just to survive.
Even so, 80,000 yen a month is cheap in Tokyo. My brother pays 120,000 yen.
In the countryside, it might be 40,000 yen, but now it's inconvenient to go to the hospital or go shopping.
As you get older, the slopes and stairs become more difficult, and there are few barrier-free properties. The environment around you is really important. Even if the rent is cheap, it's no use if the conditions are bad. I
knew that as you get older, your rent could go up even though your income doesn't increase.
Is it possible for the rent to go up? Apparently, if a place
gets old and you renovate it, the landlord will raise the rent. I've heard of people who were suddenly told to move out because it was old and out of order. If that happens, you have to find a new place, but seniors really can't pass the screening. When
my relative tried to move after he turned 70, he was repeatedly turned down simply because he didn't have a guarantor. He ended up using a guarantee company, and apparently the guarantee amount is not insignificant. I heard that it costs 30,000 yen a year.
Renting has an image of freedom, but it actually becomes inconvenient as you get older. It's fine when you're young, but it's not a system that's suitable for the elderly. Also, if you're hospitalized due to illness and are away for an extended period, are you really going to be asked to pay rent? That happens
quite often. Even if you're paying rent, if you're not living there, it's a no-no. Some people don't want to rent to elderly people because of the risk of loneliness. It's tough being in a position where you're being taken care of even when you're old. Rent is not only expensive, but it's also a huge mental pressure. And the longer you hold on, the more you realize it. Your pension doesn't increase, but rent is deducted every month as long as you live. It's a structure where expenses never stop as long as you live.
On the other hand, if you own your own home, you have to pay repairs and taxes, but no one can take away your right to live there.
But even people who own their own homes complain about the property tax of 80,000 yen a year. But I think to myself, they're living for the equivalent of 1 month's rent. When you
think about it that way, low fixed costs are the way to go for the elderly.
Of those, rent is the heaviest fixed cost. And it can increase but never decrease.
Isn't this an amorphous debt? I've been paying it off all this time, but I can't go to Kansai.
But I can't buy a house now. I'm almost 60, and it's questionable whether I can get a loan.
If I were to buy it all at once, it would cost tens of millions. That's just impossible. In that case, I have no choice but to continue living at my current rent, but I could be evicted when I get older. If I don't make a move while I still have options, I'll have already accumulated debt by the time I realize it. Once I'm over 60, choosing a house is no longer a matter of negotiating terms. It was an illusion that renting equals freedom. Being able to live freely is a privilege only available when you're young. The amount of pension I receive in my old age and the amount of rent I pay out. I feel like this difference will be the last disparity in my life. I said that renting is hell because it's so expensive. But if I were to say that owning a house is the ultimate victory, then it would be hell. I
used to be in favor of owning a house, but things started to break down after it was over 30 years old. The cost of repairing the roof, water, outside odors, and bathroom is like a body blow. When my car broke down, I lost 300,000 yen. This is a common problem when you live on a pension.
Another pain is the property tax. We pay about 90,000 yen every year. If we don't pay, our property will be seized. And in some places, it can be as much as 200,000 yen a year. It's
not just renting that costs money to live in. It used to be said that owning a home was the best way to live, back in the Showa era.
Back then, the population was increasing, and the number of properties was also increasing. Now, the number is decreasing, and if your home is far from the station, it's easy for it to go unsold. I have an acquaintance who bought an apartment and was crying 30 years later about the repair reserve. He got into a fight with the residents over replacing an elevator, which cost 200,000 yen per unit. The
management fees and repair reserve fees for apartments are a big burden. You pay about the same amount every month as you would for a rental. And since you can't decide on repairs yourself, you're at the mercy of the management dispute.
When you get old, your body and your wallet become less flexible, so it's tough to be at the mercy of your home. It would be one thing if your children took over, but if you become a Kia, that would be a problem too. If you end up having to go
into a facility for nursing care or something, there's a scenario where you don't use the house even if it's still there.
And then IKEA is treated as an asset and it affects your own burden of nursing care costs, which is the worst.
What the heck is that? Isn't it a loss to have hair, I
wish they'd stop arguing that owning a house is safe. In this era of 100-year lifespans, owning a house is actually a risk. Having a house increases your worries, which is profound.
In the end, if both are hell, I feel like I'll regret whatever choice I make. Renting means you'll always have to pay rent. Owning a house ends up costing you money for repairs and such.
20 million yen for retirement is nowhere near enough. I'm 67 and I still have a house, but I still have a mortgage.
Isn't it sane to say you're planning to move to Kansai when you're 75? Not only is that no different from renting, but it's actually too restrictive. It takes courage to go back to renting now, and it's no joke when you move.
In the end, it's all about whether you pay rent or repairs regularly. No, mentally, it's quite different. Owning a house gives you the peace of mind that you won't be told to move out. Being rich is also important. People who built their houses outside the city seem to have a lot of inconveniences. Land was cheap for me, and I was healthy at the time and didn't have a passport. So I bought a property far from the station without thinking about the consequences. But shopping and commuting are too much of a hassle. The number of buses has decreased, and taxis are expensive.
I also lived in an apartment without an elevator because I was blinded by the low price without thinking about my old age. But it's still pretty hard, but isn't
it tough to live in a city on a pension? It's impossible to rent a house with a pension of 140,000 yen. To begin with, the idea of saying this to an old person might be a Showa-era thing. These days, many people think about moving or living in a facility.
But I still want to die in my own home.
That's the ideal, but it's hard when it doesn't work out. A
house where you have to go up and down stairs even if you can't move your body anymore is really hell. So maybe a facility is more realistic. If you're renting, you can choose a barrier-free place, but sometimes you'll be turned down when you renew your lease because you're elderly. I
really don't know what to do. Either way, nothing is perfect.
Maybe it's not about which is more profitable for a retirement home, but which one you can live with.
That way of putting it hits home. It's more about determination than virtue. I
have an acquaintance who bought a used house just before retirement. Was that okay right before retirement? Apparently he bought it with cash, but the renovation work was terrible. He bought a
used house and had to replace all the plumbing, right? Even if it wasn't a multi-million loan, it would still end up costing him a lot of money.
And apparently the house wasn't very rich. It's a 25-minute walk to the station. There are only a few buses a day. As
long as you have a car, you can manage. As expected, he can't drive anymore, and apparently he has to pay 20,000 yen for a taxi once a week. It's a case of having a house but not being able to make ends meet. And apparently when he told his children that he could take them with him if he died, they refused.
Of course, a place like Ekanakako Kodate has zero appeal to the younger generation. It's
hard to even think about family ties like that. It might have been better for their family if they hadn't bought it. On the contrary, my acquaintance is doing well and peacefully. It's a barrier-free design in the basement of the station. It was
designed with the logo in mind from the beginning. It
seems to have taken root quite a bit, but apparently they've been able to get by with everything from shopping to hospitals and insurance. I heard he still invites his friends over to play mahjong. It's a case of wealth and design saving everything.
But that person was able to live there because they had plenty of money to begin with. That's
right. Owning a house doesn't equal peace of mind. Money equals owning a house, and that's just the starting line. Many people mistakenly believe that if they have a house, they'll be secure in old age. That's a
Showa-era fantasy. Nowadays, just maintaining a house eats into their lives. So if you're going to buy a house after you're 60, you have to consider the three elements of the location, facilities, and funds, or you'll be in hell. When you
think about it that way, people who buy houses in their 60s are like bombs. If you win, you'll be comfortable. If you lose, you'll be stuck in a cycle of isolation and spending. And because you've won, you can't escape.
Renting gives you a way out, but owning a house is a complete waste of money. But it's comfortable to live in, and it's the kind of place you'll live in for the rest of your life.
So in the end, if you're going to buy, you should do your research and make a decision. And the idea that your children will inherit the house is just an illusion. My parents actually passed away 3 years ago, but I've been paying property taxes even though no one lives there. Are you thinking too much about selling your house? Even if I wanted to sell it, no one has written anything in the countryside. I don't even have the money to demolish it. I'm
in the same situation, but I can't even manage it, and it's become a weed-ridden house, and I'm getting complaints from the neighbors.
What if the government tells me to forcibly demolish it? I could easily lose several million yen. Do you really think that your own home is an asset? People
often say that a house is an asset, but no one would buy a house that's been on the land for 40 years. On the other hand, there are cases where you have to pay disposal fees. I was
scared when I heard an acquaintance say that he wanted to buy it for 2 million yen, and the land tax goes up even after it's been demolished. It's
comfortable to live in, but if you expect it to be an asset, it's going to be different. An
asset is something that brings you money. Your own home doesn't bring you money. On the contrary, it just keeps going out every month. Many people think of it as an asset.
And paying off a loan is pretty big. Many people don't realize that in the first 10 years, the interest is overwhelmingly higher than the original investment. If you
think about it calmly, if you live there for 30 years, you'll have nothing. The land will remain, but the building will be worth nothing on paper due to depreciation. The
value of a house will drop by 30% in 3 months. Even if you buy it for 50 million yen, it will be worth 35 million yen after 3 months. And from there, it will continue to drop as a used house. An
acquaintance of mine bought a newly built condominium and sold it after 5 years, but he was in despair. He said he
could only sell it for less than the remaining loan balance. That's
exactly how it was when he bought it, and his assets were depleted. A
friend of mine who said he could just sell it if necessary is now struggling with how to dispose of it. The right thing to do is sell it before it becomes unsellable, but he can't seem to make a decision. When you think about it that way, renting and living light and easy is a good idea. I don't think a house that can be used for anything other than continuing to live there is an asset. I
think that owning a house is a real loss unless you're good at using it. I'm in the
camp that deliberately didn't buy a house. I thought it would be better to be light and easy when you're old. If the environment doesn't suit you, you can move right away.
I almost had my lease renew rejected when I was 60.
Seriously, the reason is that
landlords are scared that elderly people are at risk of loneliness. They
say that if you get lonely, the value of the property will go down. That's why
these days, there are conditions such as subscribing to a monitoring service.
But that means the monthly fee will be added on. In the end, money ends up costing you somewhere. The reality is that behind the word freedom comes responsibility and expense. Also, when I got the notice that the apartment I had been living in for a long time was going to be demolished, I panicked and thought my life was over. It's a common occurrence when
renting for several years. Renovation course. Did that come out of the blue? How many months in advance did you get notified?
I got notified 6 months in advance. I searched like crazy for a property.
Even so, 6 months in advance is a tight deadline. I wish they had told me a year in advance. I wouldn't have complained if they had provided some kind of support. It's frustrating that they leave everything up to us even though we haven't done anything wrong. Someone I know was asked to move after he turned 70. He cried because he couldn't find another property. It
must be mentally tough to live in a place when you're old. That's why if you're going to live in a rental property, you have to have a plan for where you're going to go after you move out.
On the other hand, my brother moved to UR property in Tokyo. Apparently, UR doesn't require a guarantor, and there are properties that welcome the elderly. What is UR again?
UR rentals are rental housing provided by the Urban Renaissance Agency, a government-established organization. A major feature is that there are no deposits or renewals required. Guarantees are also not required in principle, and the screening for moving in is mainly based on whether or not you meet income standards. There are properties all over the country, and there are also comprehensive support systems for the elderly and disabled, making it a popular option for public rental housing where you can live with peace of mind for a long time.
UR seems to be a pioneer in providing accommodation for the elderly. Many of the properties are barrier-free, and I've heard that the rent is slightly better than private properties. However, the competition is fierce. Even if the air quality is good, the elderly quickly fill up. I guess
it's the fate of rentals to be the chosen ones. Recently, there are more places that will accept you if you use a guarantor company, but just because it's a tradition can make you lose credibility.
My dad had trouble because he was asked for proof of income every time he renewed his lease. The reality is that your credit rating goes down if you only have a pension. I'm
really worried right now, but a weird guy moved in next door and plays loud music every night.
Seriously?
Is it a rental or a house? It was a place he had lived in for 30 years. It's suddenly become hell in the past year. It's tough not being able to move. If you're renting, you can move out, but if you own your own home, there's no escape. It happened to me once. My neighbor had a pet, and the smell and bugs in the summer became unbearable.
Did you file a complaint? I didn't
want to cause trouble, so I contacted the management company instead of directly, but neither the management company nor the neighborhood association took any action, so I ended up just putting up with it. The gotcha is really scary. and it would be the worst if I won when I'm an old man. It seems like the people around me are selling their properties for similar reasons.
It means the whole area is finished. Even in a quiet residential area, the atmosphere changes when the generations change.
My friend ended up in a mental hospital and moved to a nursing home early because of that. The problem is not the heat of the walls, but the way people are treated. I almost bought a house when I was young, but I suddenly woke up when I saw the bubble economy burst. There were a lot of
people around me who had failed. My
uncle built a house outside the public sector, but it was a failure, so he got divorced with only the mortgage remaining.
Seeing that makes you cautious. My
parents' generation used to think that once they bought a house, they were considered full-fledged adults.
My parents were like that too. They asked me if I was okay knowing that I was still renting at 40.
Even if I owned a house, I would have been in a quagmire because I would have been transferred and got divorced. It's
not that renting is a bad choice, it's that the idea that not owning a house is a failure is bad. I'm a
single-minded person and prioritized lightness, so renting was the only option. I also changed my house at least once a year to change my mood. I
especially felt this way after I started caring for my parents. If you have a house, you can't move around. There are all the procedures and local medical institutions that are entangled. In the end, there is no right or wrong answer. There are both advantages and disadvantages to owning a house and renting. The decision will change depending on each person's lifestyle and timing. The
only thing I can say is that if you make a choice based on assumptions, you will regret it. It all comes down to whether or not you can imagine your life in retirement.
When you're young, buying a house is a dream, but as you get older, reality catches up. So you need to think about what will happen in 30 years, not now. If you have a
stable income, a family who will inherit it, owning a house might be a good idea. A
house isn't the goal, it's a means to enrich your life and a way to show it off. Let's start preparing today. Living in a rented apartment after 60 is pretty tough. I'm managing somehow for now, but I'm worried about what will happen in the future. I'm currently living in a shabby apartment that I've been in for 40 years, and I'm being charged 70,000 yen a month. Isn't that too much? I pay 80,000 yen a month in Tokyo, and I was told that's cheap in Tokyo. But with a pension of 120,000 yen, 70,000 yen is too much. My pension is less than 100,000 yen a month, and if I pay 60,000 yen in rent, I'm barely making ends meet. Is
that enough to cover living expenses? I'm
cutting back on food expenses to 10,000 yen and utility bills to 15,000 yen, and I'm cutting back as much as I can. Renting used to be normal, but now it feels like a path to hell. No matter how much you
pay in rent, it never becomes yours. That's what's really tough. If you owned your
own home, you'd have zero expenses if you got the mortgage paid off. Plus, you could choose when to do repairs yourself, and you wouldn't have to worry about being evicted. Living in rent when you're older is tough on your mental health. I'm scared that money will just disappear from your account. And
if you default, they'll contact you right away. When can you pay? I was scared of that voice.
Once, I made a mistake in withdrawing my rent and immediately went upstairs with the lights on so I wouldn't have to. Then I was coldly told that there would be no next time, and since then I've been living in fear every month. Even if you're a grown man with a low income, the government and the insurance company are merciless. I think it would be better to get welfare, which provides rent assistance. But welfare screening is strict, and you can't live where you want. And since there's a set rent cap, the environment just keeps getting worse. Rent is a little hell that piles up every month. When you live on a pension, it's hard enough just to pay it. The scary thing about renting isn't just the rent. Even if you want to move to a cheaper rental, the hurdles increase dramatically as you get older, with things like guarantors and screening. My father was 70 and his lease renewal was rejected. Is
it because he's on a pension that he's rejected?
He had an income and savings, but he was rejected because he didn't have a guarantor.
Apparently, most people are concerned about the risk of being a loner.
My friend said he was rejected too. Even if you have 5 million yen in savings, it didn't work. I heard that you can get a rental without a guarantor. But that's relatively easy to get into. But what about the location and rent? Rentals are rental housing provided by the Urban Renaissance Agency, a government-established organization, and a major feature is that there is no need for a deposit or renewal fee. Guarantees are also not required in principle, and the screening for moving in is mainly based on whether or not you meet income standards. There are properties all over the country, and there are also comprehensive support systems for the elderly and disabled, so it is popular as a public rental housing option that you can move in with peace of mind for the long term. The UR properties near my house are mostly for families, and they are too big for a single person to live in. In addition, many of the apartment complexes are old, and there are often 5 floors without elevators. In that case, a property for welfare recipients might be more realistic. The current upper limit for living assistance for single people in Tokyo is a little over 50,000 yen. It varies by region, but in the 23 wards, it's around 49,000 yen. Properties under 50,000 yen either don't have a bath or are your own property. I've
Also heard that in some cases, even those on welfare recipients won't be able to get in if you don't have a guarantor. So if you're single and rent for a long time, you could end up spending a lot of money when you're old. They
say to prepare while you're young, but no one in their 30s can think about old age. I also prioritize travel over buying a house.
I don't have a family, so I thought I'd just rent forever. It's impossible to buy a house now because of my age and the loan terms. I didn't have that much money left over for a down payment, and the rest would be for a
guarantor agency, but apparently you can get turned down for that if you're old. A guarantor agency is a service where a company acts as a guarantor, which is necessary for rental contracts and hospitalizations. It's used when you don't have anyone to act as a guarantor or when you don't have anyone to ask to act as a guarantor. Apparently it's better to use a guarantor company when you're young. I've heard that it builds trust in the future. Apparently there's data in the car. I've heard that they check to see if there have been any problems in the past. Is it possible that someone who has signed a contract since they were young would be more reliable than an elderly person who has never used it? When you think about it that way, it might be easier in the long run if you don't have a guarantor and rely on a guarantor company when you're young. I'm
already 65, but is it too late?
I got accepted at the place I signed up for when I was 60. But once you turn 75, you have to renew your lease every year. There are insurance plans for the elderly, but the rent is higher and it ends up being a burden, so it's not realistic.
In the end, if you live in a rental property, you have to start preparing for old age from a young age.
Recently, on rainy days, water comes in through the gaps in the entrance. No matter how much I blow, there's no mist.
My house is similar. I hate it when the floor closes and it gets stuffy. I almost
got heat stroke in the summer. There's air conditioning, but it's not very effective. Even when it's set to 23 degrees, I can't stop sweating. It's life-threatening for the elderly. Even if I talk to the landlord, it's old, so there's nothing I can do about it. Oh, and I've lost the will to talk to him. The
young guy in the next room is making noise at night. The walls are thin and I've been having trouble sleeping.
Have you talked to the management company? I'll consider it even if I talk to the management company.
That's the end of it. If I tell them directly, it could cause trouble, so I just have to put up with it. The toilet pipes are old, so sometimes I have to flush medicine. I feel nervous every time I flush it. If I owned my
own house, I could just spend money to fix it, but when I rent, the landlord's convenience comes first. I pay rent every month, but it feels too much like I'm just getting by. I'm cutting into my savings to pay the bills, so one problem could wipe it all out. Renting is easy when you're young, but when you're old, it's a complete noise in your life. Every time the floor creaks, you have to be careful of what's going on down there, and conversely, I'm starting to get irritated by the noises from upstairs. It also creates a lot of stress for the other residents. I feel like all that stress is going to ruin relationships.
And since I can't even make any changes to the room, I can't even pursue a more comfortable life.
When I got the notice to renew, the rent had gone up by 3,000 yen. My rent went up by 10,000 yen, and that's for an apartment I've lived in for 40 years. Seriously? Even though it's an old property, they still raise the rent. What was the reason? They said it was to match the market price in the neighborhood. Then at least change the wallpaper. Isn't it strange that the rent goes up every time you renew? Your pension doesn't increase, but your expenses do. Even if you complain to the management company, they'll just say it's part of the contract and that's the end of it. You have no choice but to accept it. I'm
barely getting by on welfare, so what's the big deal about 3,000 yen? I was thinking about refusing to renew my lease, but I have nowhere else to move. There
was a story on the news recently about the rent being raised from 70,000 to 190,000 yen.
What happened?
Apparently the owner changed to a Chinese person. There's nothing you can do about
that. They
say renting is easy, but the stress of being evicted is greater. In the past, old people used to say that renting allows you to live light, but now I get angry at those words. Prices are rising, and my pension is getting smaller. So how am I supposed to live? Every time I get a notice of a rent increase, my heart starts beating and I can't sleep. Lately, every day has been filled with anxiety, and waking up in the morning feels heavy. The feeling that money is decreasing just by living is mentally tough. I'm 65 and I don't eat instant noodles. If I owned my own house, I could at least sleep under a roof even if I had to shut myself in. In the winter, the dust would come in through the cracks and I would wake up with cold hands and feet even when I was sleeping.
I was stingy with the kerosene and caught a cold. In the end, the hospital bill cost more. I panicked because I couldn't even pay the medical bills when I went to the hospital. It's
Not easy to spend your old age in a rented apartment. There's always the tension of being evicted at some point.
Even in this situation, it's probably not so bad. The number of people who end up on the streets is increasing.
If I get evicted from my current apartment, it'll be the end for me. I don't have anywhere else to live. It's been
left unattended even though it's in the wall. I have a feeling it'll be bad if the next one comes. I'll contact the management company and see what happens. It'll be too late once my vision is completely ruined. The
cracks in the ceiling are getting bigger and bigger, and I feel like it's going to rain in full swing. I don't
Know what the previous tenant did, but the bathroom is covered in mosquito bites and no matter how much I clean, they won't come off. My
house is similar. When cockroaches came out of the attic, I seriously considered moving.
But all rentals require permission, so it takes a long time. And most of them just ignore me. I've been waiting for 3 months now and they haven't even contacted me. I
decided to quit renting a house because I didn't have the money to buy one, but I wish I had bought one even if it meant stretching my budget. I never imagined I'd be this scared about where to live in my old age. I'm paying 60,000 yen in rent for my current shabby apartment, but in the countryside, houses are much cheaper. I've seen IKEA Bank, and they're seriously selling for 10,000 yen or 30,000 yen. IKEA Bank is a system run by local governments and private organizations to match people who want to rent or buy houses with people who want to sell or rent them. It aims to promote the effective use of houses and revitalize the region. The only problem is transportation and hospitals. There are only 3 buses a day. Well, I guess I'll just have to accept that.
In fact, I have an acquaintance who lives in an old house in Nagano, and he did some DIY and it seemed comfortable. If
you could get a new flat, a spacious bathroom, and a new air conditioner, it might be heaven.
I went to see it once, but the inside looked like a ruin, so I gave up.
Still, it's an option. It might be easier mentally than growing old in a rented house. It's better to be able to live at your own pace than to be scared of the management company. I can't stop sitting since I moved to a cheap place. The smell is irritating, and the stale air in the winter is terrible.
I also got a sore throat from it and had to go to the hospital. There's no budget to improve the environment.
In the end, cheap properties end up being torn down. And the hospital is far away, so it's too late once it gets worse.
Loneliness is not something that happens to other people. It's becoming more real every year. I've thought about it being safer to go into a facility, but it's not easy to get in. I was
told that there's a waiting list for special days, which is even bigger than a monster's. I don't know how many years it will take. They said it's not possible right away. Hell starts after you apply for a special day. It's normal to wait several years for the autumn to come out. My
dad is looking for a facility after the monsters, but they're all fully booked and he's been turned away. What are you going to do in the meantime? In the end, you'll end up going through hell at home. There
was a vacancy at a paid nursing home, but they offered 200,000 yen a month, so they closed it immediately. When I got the documents, the one-time entrance fee alone was 5 million yen. This is a system that only the rich can use.
Even if you're forced to consult, they'll just contact you when the autumn comes out. And that could be 3 years or 10 years from now.
Honestly, the regional differences are too big. I think there are more options in the city. In my local government, it's hard to even find support points. What do you mean it's better to just look it up online? The way the
system responds varies too much depending on the atmosphere. It's still better in the city. The countryside is terrible. When you
go to the countryside, you don't know anyone and you feel very isolated. I've had temporary staff complain to the management company just because I chose it late at night. It's tough having to be careful about the time of day. The management company contacted me just to check on the daytime just because there were flyers piling up in the mailbox. On the other hand, sometimes that's helpful. But it also feels cramped because it feels like you're being watched. If there's trouble, rumors will spread among the 10 people. Small rental communities are kind of scary. When I was younger, I didn't feel anything, but as I get older, I start to feel more and more isolated. I recently learned that if you're hospitalized, you may be asked to leave depending on how many months you've been vacant.
If you're in the hospital, even if you're paying rent, they'll say it's not okay under the contract. I
have an acquaintance whose room was cleared out while he was in the hospital. They unilaterally told them they couldn't get in touch with him and that they were terminating the contract. Apparently all his belongings were disposed of without his permission. I was shocked to hear that when he left and returned, the locks had been changed. The risk is higher for lonely elderly people. He doesn't
have a guarantor. The emergency contact information didn't work, so he couldn't even get into a nursing home, and he was kicked out of the hospital and his house was gone. It's not funny. It's
just a rental, so if you don't live there, it's not a valid contract, and you're being swayed by the pretense. After all, when you rent, you're in a position where you're being allowed to live. They're quietly asking you if it's fair. My acquaintance, who was a guarantor, was denied a renewal of his rental contract a month after he was rescued. I guess that happens. The death of a guarantor is an immediate risk, and apparently he was told to find a new guarantor, but his younger brother, who is over 70, was denied because of his age. Single elderly people don't have guarantors, and even substitute witnesses are denied because of their age and income. This system is broken. The last few years of life in this country are the hardest. No amount of preparation will help. There are no options. I
went to the local comprehensive support center because I was at a loss, but the person in charge wasn't there, so I was turned away again later. A
comprehensive support center is a consultation desk set up by local governments to support the elderly in areas such as nursing care, medical care, and welfare. It mainly deals with a wide range of issues, including how to use nursing care services, dementia consultation and rights terminology, preventing abuse, and providing support for daily life, mainly for elderly people over 65 and their families. It serves as a comprehensive consultation service for the elderly in the area, with specialists such as insurance specialists, social workers and care managers on site to provide integrated support for any problems. I had a similar experience. First, I consulted with the care manager, but they just passed me around and that was it. There were a lot of application forms, the print was small and hard to understand. In the end, I couldn't do anything on my own. I
asked for support, but they said I was still healthy, which was a shock. In the end, nothing changed.
Maybe it's good that the system exists, but too often it doesn't reach people who are really in need. All I was left with was the feeling that it's pointless to consult. The people at the counter seemed busy and didn't seem to be taking you seriously. If you're treated coldly in a place like that, you'll have nowhere else to turn. Do you think a frail elderly person can go to the counter alone and do anything? The system has already broken down at that point. Anyway, I guess it's impossible to grow old in this country without family or neighborly relationships. I even submitted proof of my savings during the tenant screening, but they refused me, saying they'd make a comprehensive judgment. Overall, it all comes down to appearance and age, right? There are barriers that documents can't overcome.
I showed my pension records and explained that I would receive 280,000 yen a month, but I was rejected because they said my guarantor was weak. The only
seniors who passed the screening are those who had impressive titles while they were working. I asked a real estate agent once and they told me straight out that management doesn't like seniors.
Even if you have 20 million yen in savings, they'll reject you just because you're lonely and at risk, and I feel like they're looking at your aura of being about to die rather than the numbers. If you
get rejected because the insurance company says it's no good, there's nothing you can do. Insurance companies are apparently absolute.
In the end, the information we can provide isn't trustworthy. I envy those who get approved just because they're young and working. Honestly, I never thought I'd be in a position where I'd be so excluded.
Thank you for watching until the end. Do you have any worries or concerns if you live in a rental property? Or if there are any benefits you feel, please write them in the comments. This channel will continue to introduce useful information for seniors. If you like it, please subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. Yeah.